Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. No doubt everyone is relieved that one of the most negative election cycles in recent memory is history. Candidates spent close to $4 billion, that's with a B, in races all over the country. Now it's over, and there's been a seismic political shift. I'm Don Marsh. With me to go over the results and analyze what happened and why yesterday, Joe Mannis, political reporter for the St. Louis Beacon, the online newspaper, and David Robertson, political scientist here at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Thanks so much, guys, for being with me today. I look at you, and your eyes are at half mast. I know you had a very late night last night, so thanks especially for being with us. Let's start with your takeaway. Joe, I'll begin with you, if I could. Your takeaway in what happened in Missouri yesterday, very general impression.
Basically, the Democrats got creamed. It's one thing to lose. In fact, I had talked to some operatives last night. This is as the numbers were first coming in on both sides, who were telling me about the last tracking polls that showed Robin Carnahan down by 5 or 6. So that was making the Democrats feel fairly good. They knew she was going to lose, but they thought that meant that Monty could probably pull it off. Well, somebody must have forgot to put a 1 in front of that 5. Because, when you lose by 15 percentage points like that, that has such a drag on the rest of your ticket. So Susan Monty, the Democratic state auditor, who had not been hit with any controversies, other than the fact that the state auditor contest was in the shadows, got knocked off by Tom Schweik, a lawyer from St. Louis who has never run for office before, and he's not an auditor, although he has conducted the type of investigations that he says that the auditor's office does. He's very close to Jack Danforth. Then you look at Ike Skelton in Western Missouri, who's the dean of Missouri's congressional delegation. He went to Congress when Dick Gephardt went to Congress. So after 17 terms, he is knocked off. Again, this was one that early in the evening, operatives on both sides were calling me saying it looked like he was going to hold on. Then you had, and this is less noticed, aside from the fact that, Dooley and Russ Carnahan hung on, but 3 more state Senate seats that had been held by Democrats are now held by Republicans. So the Republicans now hold at least 25 of the 34. And in the State House, I don't have the exact numbers yet, but the Republicans snatched a lot of those open seats. So they're going to have a huge margins, which poses a lot of challenges for Governor Jay Nixon, who's a Democrat. He's one of the few Democrats left standing, so that's going to be very interesting.
All right, and Dave?
The numbers I got on the legislature from, and I'm grateful to David Lieb for sharing this, were Republicans up 3 in the state Senate, right, and up to 106 seats in the lower house, in the House of Representatives. That's a big number. Not quite veto-proof, but getting close to that. So big sweep, big night for Republicans across the country, big night in the swing state of Missouri. I don't call it a bellwether anymore because clearly it's trending Republican. Republicans are strong, and they're going to get stronger because they have a senator in place who can contribute to party building. They have now a second statewide executive office. They have that western seat in the House of Representatives, and they have this very strong farm team in the legislature.
While we're talking about the legislature, let's move on to something that I wanted to get to probably a little later, and that's the issue of redistricting. This is the census year, and that's going to happen. Also, it's my understanding that we're likely in Missouri to lose a congressional seat. That's the way it looks. What happens there? With a Republican legislature, and I know we have a Democratic governor, but they can pretty much redistrict anyone they choose out of office, can't they?
Well, it's a little more complicated. The legislature does have a direct role in the drawing of the congressional seats, but in the legislative seats, there are these special panels that are set up so that can negate some of the Republican pressure. For the members of Congress, though,
that's what I'm talking about.
Now, we really won't know for maybe another month if Missouri or Minnesota is going to take the hit on that seat. If Missouri does, one of the theories is that the Republicans' majorities, now you got a big one, are going to try to squeeze that extra seat out of the St. Louis area and basically pit Russ Carnahan and Lacey Clay against each other, which is a possibility. Now, the governor can veto that, and then it ends up going to a judicial panel.
Right.
So there may be some deals cut on that, and
maybe it has to be.
I think that if there is some backroom dealing on that, there'll be a question of, if Ike Skelton had won and then said he was retiring, which was one scenario, then Ike's district would have been cut up. Now you've got Republican Vicky Hartzler representing that district, so the GOP is probably going to try to protect her a bit. But on the other hand, a lot of this stuff, it's not just party, it's also personality. Who's close to who's friends with who. The reason the lines are the way they are now is because it's rather interesting, is that the key operative for Dick Gephardt, Joyce Abusi at the time, was on good terms with Lloyd Smith, who was chief of staff for Joanne Emerson, and Lloyd is now executive director for the Missouri Republican Party. Those two helped mastermind this list. They went to Roy Blunt and said, draw your dream lines. They went to the congressman up in northern Missouri, said, draw your dream lines. And then in the end, Gephardt and Clay cut kind of it was a difficult deal, but it was cut because Gephardt wanted more Democrats. So sometimes, it was a scene that you would not have put into a movie, where you had Democratic and Republican operatives working together and actually in the meetings together getting this deal cut. Now you're looking 10 years later. I'm not sure there's that kind of cross-party lines cooperation, so it could be a lot more combative.
That's what I was going to suggest, Dave. That being that if it once was just personalities, now it is factional. It would seem to me, given the polarization issue.
Right. There's a lot of potential for a knife fight on this, and the governor with the veto power just has enough leeway to be able to stop what the legislature wants to do and throw it to the courts. So, traditionally in the past, you've seen a lot of states deal with this by cutting out the most junior member, one way or another. But don't know what's going to happen with this. We know that the population drop is in the north, and that somehow you're going to have to make those districts bigger. What that means for anything, and particularly in St. Louis, hard to say. I'll say with this, though, what's not being noticed in other states is that, as far as I can tell, in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that the legislature and the governor are of the same party going into this redistricting. Those are big electoral vote states, big states for Obama in 2012. It looks like a real difficult uphill climb for the Democrats in those states at this point, but it's way too early to conclude anything.
It's one of the reasons Obama spends so much time in